November 1995. A finished pirate movie sits in the vault. The company that paid for it no longer exists as a going concern. Carolco Pictures, the independent studio that once put Arnold Schwarzenegger through time and Sylvester Stallone on a mountain, files for Chapter 11 protection 6 weeks before Cutthroat Island can reach a single ticket window. The ships are built. The prints are struck. The corporate body is already gone. That is the contradiction. A studio famous for making movies too expensive for anyone else dies before the most expensive movie it ever attempted can even fail in public. Interest in that mountain picture has returned. A Cliffhanger reboot is scheduled for February 24, 2027, which is why the original studio's name is circulating again. This is not a story about that reboot. This is the story of what Carolco did with the original film's future, and with Terminator 2's future, when the company had almost nothing left to sell except its own past. Carolco did not simply pick a bad script. It converted its two most durable assets into cash to keep one production alive, then ran out of time before the production could pay anyone back.
The reboot will try to climb the same cliff Stallone climbed in 1993. Carolco had already sold the cliff. The question is not whether Cutthroat Island was a weak movie. The question is how a company that financed some of the loudest hits of its decade arrived at a point where a single pirate picture could finish the legal life of the firm. The answer begins long before any ship left Malta. It begins with a financing model that looked like genius while the foreign checks cleared, and like a trap the moment they slowed.
Carolco was never designed like a major studio. Paramount owned lots and libraries. Warner owned television pipelines. Carolco owned relationships and a method. In the early 1980s, Mario Kassar and Andrew Vajna learned they could assemble a movie the way a trader assembled a cargo, sell the pieces before the hull existed. Japan wanted action. Germany wanted a star. Italy wanted a poster. Home video buyers wanted a cassette 6 months after theatrical. If those territories and windows paid advances large enough, a bank would lend the rest against the paper. First Blood in 1982 proved the method could mint a franchise from a relatively contained war picture. Rambo followed. The advances grew. So did the star's quotes. So did the company's belief that the next presale would always be larger than the last overhead bill. The public remembers the movies. The industry remembers the weekend numbers. What most people miss is that Carolco's real product was not film. It was a stack of distribution contracts dated before principal photography. That stack let an independent house compete with conglomerates that had balance sheets the size of countries. It also meant every new picture had to be pre-sold at a higher level to cover the last picture's excess, the office in Beverly Hills, the travel, the development slates that never shot, and the interest on money already spent. By the turn of the 1990s, the method had scaled into something that looked immoral. Total Recall in 1990 and Terminator 2 Judgment Day in 1991 were not merely hits, they were proof, to Carolco's lenders and to foreign distributors, that an independent could field a $100 million spectacle and still leave profit on the table. Basic Instinct in 1992 added a different kind of heat. Cliffhanger in 1993 put Stallone back on a peak and reminded buyers that Carolco still knew how to open a summer. Each success tightened the same bolt. Bigger stars, bigger advances, bigger internal burn. Vajna departed at the end of the 1980s, and Kassar remained as the public face of the gamble. The company kept living as if the next foreign market would always overpay for the next American face. Majors could survive a miss because they owned libraries, theme parks, television, and other people's failures.
Carolco's library was thin, and much of what it had already been pledged. A miss did not merely bruise a quarter. It threatened the collateral that made the next loan possible. That is the historical blind spot. Audiences thought they were watching an unstoppable indie. They were watching a revolving credit facility dressed as a studio. By 1994, the facility was coughing. Development costs had piled up. Star salaries had become a private currency the company could no longer print. Foreign buyers, once hungry, had grown cautious after a run of expensive action films that did not travel as promised. Carolco still had names. It no longer had slack. The contradiction from the opening is already visible here, years before any pirate flag is raised. A company that appears rich in titles can be poor in unencumbered rights. When the only way to start the next film is to sell the future of the last two hits, the studio has stopped being a studio. It has become a liquidation dressed as greenlight.
Mario Kassar did not wake up wanting to become a pirate producer. He wanted to remain the man who could still call Arnold Schwarzenegger and mean it. In 1994, that desire collides with arithmetic. On one desk sits Crusade, a vast historical epic with Schwarzenegger and Paul Verhoeven, the pairing that had already turned Mars into a hit. Arnold's quote alone would have consumed a smaller company's year. Verhoeven did not make chamber pieces. Crusade would have been another bet the size of a national film fund. On the other desk sits Cutthroat Island, a swashbuckler attached to Renny Harlin, coming off Cliffhanger's success, and to Geena Davis, then one of the few actresses who could open a big physical picture, and who happened to be married to the director. Carolco cannot fund both. It can barely fund one. The motives are not mysterious if you refuse romance. Kassar needs a movie foreign distributors will recognize on a one-sheet. Pirates photograph. Maps photograph. A woman with a sword photographs in territories that have grown tired of another American cop. Harlin wants the largest canvas of his career, and a vehicle for Davis that will not be dismissed as a favor. Davis wants to prove she can carry an action-adventure without being parked beside a male franchise. Schwarzenegger, for his part, does not wait forever. Stars of that magnitude have other suitors, other quotes, other years. The life or death decision is not artistic. It is which set of signatures can still be pre-sold in a market that has begun to flinch. Carolco chooses the pirates. Crusade recedes into the long file of almost films that studios mention later as the sane alternative. Inside the choice is a second motive people prefer not to name. Harlin and Davis are not only talent, they are a household already entangled with Carolco's recent past. Saying no to them is saying no to the last director who delivered a hit on a mountain. Saying yes feels like continuity. Continuity is what a drowning independent sells to itself when the banks want a title they can pronounce. Kassar is not choosing between two scripts. He is choosing which remaining relationship still looks like a future to people who wire money from Tokyo and Munich. The hidden motive is simpler than ego. If Carolco does not announce a giant picture, the pre-sale machinery stops, and a company built on promises has nothing left to promise. So, the pirate picture becomes the oxygen mask. Everyone around the table can see the mask is also a weight. They put it on anyway, because the alternative is to admit the firm has already run out of air. Once the green light is real, the financing turns feral. Carolco does not have $100 million sitting in a drawer. It has relationships, leftover equity, and two titles the rest of the world still wants to own in every window after tonight. To keep Cutthroat Island shooting, the company sells off future ancillary revenues from Terminator 2 and from Cliffhanger. Those are not poster credits. Those are cassette cycles, television licenses, sequels' downstream crumbs. The quiet money that is supposed to arrive after opening weekend is forgotten. Carolco eats its own afterlife. It sells the corporate jets. It kills or sheds other projects that might have spread risk across a slate. Every remaining asset is marched toward one production number that will not stay still. The budget is quoted at $98 million and behaves like a living thing. In Malta, sets swell into a private navy. A full-scale sailing ship is not a prop you strike on Friday. It is a construction project that eats weather, timber, labor, and days. Thailand adds water, logistics, and another climate that does not care about a completion bond calendar. Michael Douglas had been in the orbit of the picture and then was not, which leaves the marketing department holding a female-led pirate adventure in a decade whose overseas buyers still flinch at that sentence. Harlin shoots like a man who believes scale can bully doubt. Second units multiply. Reshoots accumulate the way interest does. Injuries and accidents appear in the production lore because large physical films manufacture them. Whether any single mishap is decisive matters less than the pattern. Every lost day is a day the 98 million becomes a rumor of more.
present tense now because this is where the firm actually ends. The cameras are still rolling, and the bank covenants are already dead. Vendors want deposits. Stars want the rest of their quotes. Foreign distributors who advanced money want delivery dates Carolco can no longer honestly give. MGM is lined up to distribute a movie whose producer is visibly dissolving. In Los Angeles, the lawyers stop talking about recoupment waterfalls and start talking about filing windows. On November 10, 1995, Carolco Pictures files for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection. Cutthroat Island is scheduled to open on December 22nd.
6 weeks. The company that sold the future of Terminator 2 to finish a pirate film will not be a solvent company when the pirate film premieres. That sequence is not folklore. It is the factual nucleus. And it still requires a qualifier, because a clean legend is a lie. Carolco did not lose all its money exclusively on Cutthroat Island. Years of massive overhead, A-list salaries written like imperial decrees, and a pre-sale model that treated every new picture as collateral for the last one had already pushed the studio to the brink. The pirate film is the final gamble that exhausts what capital remains. It is the match, not the gasoline. December arrives anyway. The movie opens into a Christmas marketplace that has no use for it. Audiences do not come. The worldwide gross settles near $16 million against that $98 million production cost before prints and advertising even finish their own grim arithmetic. Trade papers reach for the phrase they keep for rare disasters, one of the biggest box office bombs on record. The ships on screen keep moving. The company does not. What makes the climax cruel is not only the miss. Plenty of films miss. What makes it cruel is the order of operations. A studio normally releases a picture, takes the blow, and reorganizes if it must. Carolco reorganizes first, in public, then asks audiences to show up for a film whose maker has already declared, in a federal filing, that it cannot meet its debts. Exhibitors smell blood. Moviegoers smell a corpse. The marketing campaign is asking people to board a vessel whose owner has abandoned ship. Dominoes fall in a line that now looks obvious. Ancillary rights that might have cushioned a weak opening are gone because they were sold to Finnish photography. Other projects that might have been a second bet are gone because they were liquidated for cash. The jets are gone. The foreign buyers who might have been stroked into a sequel conversation are staring at a bankruptcy docket. Even a modest theatrical save would not have restored the rights already stripped from Terminator 2 and Cliffhanger. The downside had been prepaid. Idealism in this story is the belief that one more spectacle can refinance a structurally unsound house. Reality is a court stamp in November. Ambition is a pirate fleet.
Constraint is a company that has already sold the 2 movies people would have paid to revisit. The wound does not close when the grosses are counted. The wound is that Carolco's last creative decision and its last financial decision were the same decision, and both were made after the firm had already consumed its margin for error. When the credits roll on Cutthroat Island, they roll over an empty corporate chair. The lesson is narrower than a sermon about greed and wider than a joke about pirates. A company can own the loudest night of the year and still possess no floor. Carolco's method turned each blockbuster into a bridge to the next bridge. Bridges are not ground. When the spans are funded by selling the toll rights on the last 2 crossings, the builder is no longer crossing a river. He is dismantling the road behind him and calling it progress. Over-leveraging a single picture is not daring if the corporation underneath has no second engine. It is a confession that the firm never built a firm. Majors bury their disasters inside libraries, sports networks, parks, and other people's successes. Independents of Carolco's type bury theirs inside the next pre-sale until there is no next. The human stakes sit in ordinary places. Crews paid late, vendors written down, development staff walking out of offices that will not reopen under the same name, audiences who only notice a logo has vanished when the next Stallone picture arrives from somewhere else. There is no requirement to treat this as a moral. It is a design failure. Star salaries were not sins.
They were line items the model could not absorb once foreign advances stopped rising faster than the burn. Corporate jets were not the cause.
They were symptoms of a headquarters that consumed like a major while earning like a campaign. Cutthroat Island is the object that makes the design visible because it forced every remaining choice into one production office at the same time. A reboot of the Mountain film is scheduled years later, which proves a title can outlive the house that mortgaged it. That is the aftertaste. The pictures persist as assets in other people's catalogs. The independent that made them does not persist as a maker. Somewhere a new company will again pre-sell a spectacle large enough to frighten its own accountants, and it will tell itself the last disaster was a pirate problem, or a Christmas problem, or a marriage problem, anything but a structure problem. Watch which rights they keep. Watch whether the firm can survive the film that is supposed to save it. If the only way to finish the movie is to sell the movies that already worked, what exactly is left to save?